Imagine this. You're sitting in an interview on an ordinary June morning. It's 2021. The world has just emerged from lockdown. You've finished your third coffee of the day, reviewed the candidate list, and are ready for a 15-minute chat with a young software engineer. Everything is routine until the door opens, and then you see a face you swear you've seen before. Not at a tech conference or on social media, but on a poster taped to a rusted lamppost from a distant summer, the face of a child missing since 1998. No one mentions that name in meetings anymore. No one brings it up on news broadcasts. But you remember, so clearly, it's as if time never passed. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated with the latest stories. June 10th, 2021. Hartford, Connecticut. The 27th Fev, floor office of SkyEdge Systems, a software company. CEO, Lucas Grant. 41 years old, MIT graduate, who once built an AI platform from his dorm room, is seated at the conference table, facing a screen displaying the resume of a candidate named Noah Rivers. The interview was rescheduled from last week due to technical issues. Noah is a strong contender for a senior software engineer position. Clean resume, impressive skills, 3 years of experience at a computer vision startup in Western Oregon. 10 a.m. Noah walks in. Light blue dress shirt, dark jeans, worn sneakers, neatly trimmed black hair, bright face. When he smiles and removes his mask, Lucas feels his heart skip a beat. It's not just a sudden reaction, it's a primal reflex of memory resurfacing. Lucas sees those eyes, cloudy gray, with a gaze that pierces through the room. In the light from the window, there's a faint scar, a crescent shape, just below the left earlobe. A scar Lucas had seen hundreds of times on missing person flyers from 1998. Jacob Wilder, the boy who vanished from the town of Ashton Glen, one July afternoon that year, only 8 years old. Light brown curly hair, a dinosaur-printed t-shirt, and a smile missing a front tooth. Lucas had joined the volunteer search team in the early days of the disappearance. He was 18 then, working part-time at a local bookstore, delivering to Jacob's house. He'd heard Jacob's mother, Evelyn Wilder, calling her son's name from the second-floor window as dusk fell. But from that summer until now, no one mentioned Jacob anymore, until this morning. The candidate named Noah Rivers is speaking in a calm, slightly hoarse voice, explaining how he used neural networks to optimize user behavior predictions on a retail platform. But Lucas isn't listening anymore. In his mind, there's only one image, the boy from years ago, the boy who was never found, now sitting across a wooden table. An old nightmare just opened its eyes, and it can speak Python. But that nightmare once had a name tied to a Vermont summer shattered under the sun. Jacob Elias Wilder, the boy who vanished in 1998. Back then, Jacob was 8 and a half, living with his parents, Evelyn and Thomas Wilder, in Ashton Glen, a small town nestled among lush green hills, where every kid knew each other, and no one locked their doors. The Wilder family wasn't remarkable. Thomas was an overnight AC repairman, and Evelyn taught 4th grade geography at the town's elementary school. They weren't wealthy, but their white-painted 2-story wooden house at 213 Mapleridge Street was always filled with laughter. At the center of that world was Jacob, a boy with curly straw-blonde hair, bright gray eyes, sun-tanned skin from running outside all day, and a smile that nibbled his lower lip whenever he lied. He loved books, maps, and naming imaginary stars. Maps were his miniature world, from a New York subway map he got from the library to a hand-drawn solar system map above his bed. He once said, "If I get lost, I'll use a map to come back." July 15, 1998. Ashton Glen had mild sunshine, about 77 degrees Fahrenheit. At 7:06 a.m., Jacob woke up as usual to the slow whistle of a train passing the station. He wore a cream-colored t-shirt with a constellation map print, slung on a navy backpack with a Star Wars sticker, and put on red Converse shoes. After breakfast with toast and cold milk, Jacob kissed his mom and dad, shouting from the door, "I'm going to Leo's back for lunch." Leo McCarthy was his best friend since kindergarten, living about 7 minutes away on foot, but Jacob never made it there. When Leo didn't see his friend arrive, he assumed Jacob changed his mind. By noon, when Evelyn called and learned her son never reached Leo's, it was like a needle tearing through a still lake. Evelyn called Thomas. They started running through the neighborhood, checking friends' houses, the nearby park, the church, The library. No one had seen Jacob. At 1:38 p.m., they called the police. The search began. Ashton Glen was a peaceful town, and its very tranquility made Jacob's disappearance shake the community to its core. Residents organized search teams. Bulletins were plastered with the boy's photo. Blonde hair, red shoes, navy backpack. Hundreds of volunteers scoured forest edges, searched every stream, abandoned house, and dark basement. But there was no trace. Until the morning of the third day, on July 18th, at 6:47 a.m., a man walking his dog found an object in a ditch by the Townley forest edge, nearly 2 miles from Jacob's home. It was the navy backpack, muddy and wet on one side. The Darth Vader sticker was nearly peeled off. Inside were a National Geographic kids book, a box of colored pencils, a folded Orion constellation map, and a handwritten note. "Remember to give this to Leo, he'll like it." No blood. No signs of struggle, but it didn't need those. The backpack's presence there, far beyond Jacob's intended route, was proof something was deeply wrong. Police checked old VHS cameras at Ashton Glen Elementary. The blurry footage showed Jacob at 8:47 a.m., walking alone toward the back gate by the playground. He didn't look back. His right hand held a rolled-up map. The last image, at 8:49 a.m., showed a tall figure entering the frame from the edge of the grassy area, only part of their jacket visible. 8:50. No one left. The frame was empty. The world held its breath. The investigation file thickened by the hour. State police joined in. Helicopters were deployed. Every camera within a 3-mile radius was checked. But this was 1998. No social media, no GPS tracking, no smartphones, no Amber Alert. They had fax machines, hotlines, and desperation. By the end of July, not one of Ashton Glen's 6,200 residents held full hope. Evelyn refused to throw out anything in her son's room. The bed still had its world map blanket. On the desk sat the magnifying glass he used to study asteroid pictures in NASA books. He'd taped a sign on his door, "Jacob's Observatory. No adults allowed." Every night, Evelyn turned on the globe-shaped nightlight before bed, as if he were still reading under its glow, just not answering yet. Months passed. Each summer, a new poster appeared. An age-progressed photo was posted alongside the old one. But no news came. No arrests. No body. No witnesses. Nothing. Just a boy erased from the world, as if someone had wiped him off the map he knew by heart. And now, 23 years later, Lucas Grant is sitting on the 27th floor of a tech building in Hartford. And that boy, or someone with his face, has just left the meeting room after an interview. But it's still there. The gaze, the crescent scar, and a painful familiarity that defies logic. No police, no sirens, no VHS cameras, just a middle-aged man sitting motionless, hands trembling over the keyboard, pulling up a childhood image he thought he'd forgotten. And in that moment, Lucas knows he has to do something. Because sometimes, ghosts don't knock, they walk in as if they never left. And that shadow, with gray eyes and a crescent scar behind the left ear, had lived in Evelyn Wilder's mind for over 2 decades. It began on a quiet afternoon, before everything unraveled, when the kitchen clock read exactly 4:47 p.m. That's when Evelyn dialed 911. In her voice, that of a mother always calm and patient, something had broken. "My son, Jacob Wilder, 8.5, left home at 8 a.m. to go to a friend's, but he never got there." Her voice wasn't rushed, wasn't panicked, just raw, as if she couldn't believe she was saying it. The call was taken by Officer Melissa Keys, 27, less than 8 months on the job. She typed the command to open a missing juvenile file and asked the protocol question. "Has it been 24 hours since he went missing?" Evelyn froze. "No, only 8 hours." Melissa exhaled softly, like countless dispatchers trained to recognize false alarms or kids wandering off. But she still sent a report to the patrol team. 11 minutes later, patrol car 402, driven by Sergeant Alan Vickers, pulled up to 213 Mapwood Street. Thomas was driving around town, while Evelyn stood waiting on the porch, still holding the map Jacob often carried. It was the only thing left of her son. For the first 12 hours, it was treated like a typical missing child case. Local police made a list of friends, visited houses, and asked if anyone had seen Jacob. They checked the park, library, post office, and snack shops, places kids gathered. No one had seen Jacob after 8:50 a.m., No one. Nothing. A gas station 2 blocks from the school had a camera, but it was an outdated VHS, capturing only blurry images. A clip from 9:02 a.m. showed a faint white blur in the corner, indistinguishable as a person or vehicle. There was no Amber Alert. In 1998, the system wasn't nationwide. Vermont hadn't adopted emergency child abduction alerts. Information wasn't broadcast immediately. No push notifications, no viral social media posts. It relied on phone calls, faxes, and luck. The next day, July 16th, a surprise witness emerged. Luther Baines, 74, a gardener for homes in the Hollyridge area, where Leo McCarthy lived. He said he saw Jacob talking to an older woman near a street corner around 8:55 a.m. She wore a gray dress, silver hair tied up like a professor. Looked polite, not suspicious, but the way she leaned down to talk to the boy caught my eye. Very close. Too close. When asked why he didn't report it sooner, Luther fell silent, then muttered, "I thought it was his grandma." This was the first detail challenging the got lost theory. On July 17th, Sergeant Alan Vickers noted another report from an accountant near the train station. She saw a silver Jeep Cherokee parked illegally near the Elm and Alder intersection around 9:10 a.m. The license plate was recorded as VYT 348, but when checked against Vermont DMV records, it belonged to a 1992 Honda Civic, reported scrapped in 1995. Days later, it was discovered the police accountant misread the handwritten note. It was VY7 348, but by then, the Jeep, if it existed, was gone. On the third morning, July 18th, things shifted. Jacob's backpack was found in a ditch near the Townley Forest edge. The news spread through Ashton Glen within hours. People from nearby towns joined the search. Men in red, the town baseball team's color, lined up along forest paths. But nothing more was found. No footprints, no items, no sounds. A forest silent, as if no one had ever entered. Vermont State Police officially joined at 4:20 p.m., and only then, after 72 hours, was the case upgraded to child abduction. But the damage was done. In the critical first 3 days, there was no alert system, no federal coordination, no traffic camera sweeps or interstate data sharing. Each hour passed like a door locked forever. Sergeant Vickers later admitted in an internal report that he believed it was just a kid wandering off. He wasn't wrong, not out of negligence. In 1998, missing child cases were still viewed vaguely. A child not home after a few hours was seen as adventurous, not abducted. A broken camera went unrepaired. A misread license plate derailed the investigation. Each small error compounded into an abyss. Evelyn sat by the rotary phone, waiting for news, for 3 days and nights. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just jotted down every detail, marking every location on a town map. Thomas didn't sleep. He drove to every road, stopped at every abandoned house, every shed. His eyes were sunken, as if gripped from within. But Jacob didn't come back, and the sky kept darkening. When the backpack was brought back, Evelyn was waiting at the door. She asked to keep it. In the front pocket was a smooth stone Jacob had picked up from the riverbank that spring. He'd called it a fossilized meteor. Evelyn held the stone, closing her eyes. Not to pray, but to remember. Because she knew, if she didn't keep this memory alive, Jacob would die again. And somewhere in peaceful Ashton Glen, the person who took Jacob, if there was someone, was watching it all unfold, through a window, a TV screen, or the eyes of a child forced to stay silent. And 3 days passed, no one believed Jacob was just out playing anymore. But when hope turned to despair, the last thing people clung to was the story, something to believe in, to tell, to not feel utterly powerless. And from the void Jacob left, theories rose like smoke, intangible, untouchable, but enough to make everyone spin. The first suspect was Alan Booker, 42. A gym teacher at Ashton Glen Elementary, once reported for making Jacob stand in the sun for 30 minutes for refusing to play basketball. No one truly believed he harmed the boy, but he lived alone, no family, smoked outside the school, and crucially, had a 1991 DUI conviction. That was enough to make him a target. On July 19th, police summoned Booker to the station for additional details. The questioning lasted 14 hours. No lawyer, no teachers' union rep. They asked about every detail of July 15th, even days he wasn't working. When he said he slept till noon due to a cold, They called it a vague excuse. One officer noted, "Lonely individual, no alibi, needs further monitoring." When fingerprint tests on Jacob's backpack didn't match Booker, he was released. But the damage was done. Local media, hungry for news, leaked his name through an anonymous source. Tabloids ran bold red headlines: "Mystery Teacher and the Ghost of the Missing." Within 72 hours, Booker was suspended. A week later, he left town, never returned. The second mistake came from a seemingly credible statement. Marvin Holloway, 61, a milk delivery driver, said he saw a boy like Jacob in the back of a pickup truck with an older man heading toward the northern forest around 9:20 a.m. on July 15th. Blonde hair, light-colored shirt, holding a map, just like the picture you showed me, he insisted. Police launched a manhunt for an old blue Dodge Ram pickup, license plate starting with CVS. For 3 days, 22 police units searched over 80 matching vehicles, checking warehouses and gas stations along the New Hampshire border. But on the fourth day, Marvin returned to the station and admitted he was mistaken. "I saw the boy the Sunday before, not the day Jacob went missing." The manhunt ended instantly. 112 hours wasted. Meanwhile, the media didn't wait for a resolution. They descended on Ashton Glen with microphones, floodlights, mobile satellites, and preconceived scripts. Some TV stations called it the daytime disappearance. Early internet forums shared age-progressed photos, satellite maps, and even theories of child abduction rings selling across the Canadian border. One magazine brought a psychic to the scene, holding a séance in the schoolyard where Jacob once played. Result, it only angered residents and broke Jacob's parents further. Then, suspicion turned inward to the family itself. Many detectives whispered among themselves, most child abductions involve someone close. A retired FBI agent, appearing on a late-night show, stated, "If the boy wasn't taken for ransom, look closely at relatives." From then on, all eyes turned to Thomas Wilder. He was the last to see Jacob that morning. He had a history of depression after his mother's death in 1994. He worked as an AC repairman, access to private spaces, and most critically, he was quiet. At press conferences, Evelyn spoke. Thomas stood behind, hands in pockets, eyes down. His silence was misread. On July 28th, Thomas was called to the station to cooperate with state investigators. He took 2 polygraph tests. Results were noted as inconclusive due to high emotional stress, but the interrogation details leaked to the press. A tabloid ran the headline, "What is the father hiding?" Evelyn, furious, smashed the rotary phone. Thomas didn't come home for 3 days. He slept in his car, drank old whiskey, and wrote in his journal, "I don't know how to prove I didn't kill my son." By late August, over 40 days had passed, with no new leads. Search teams were disbanded. News channels shifted to covering the Kosovo crisis. Neighbors resumed their routines, but their eyes held a hint of avoidance when they saw the Wilder family. Jacob, the blonde boy once cherished, faded into a shadow, a photo on a utility pole. A haunting memory people didn't know whether to face or bury. In September, the case was officially marked cold. A steel shelf in the Ashton Glen Police Station's records room bore a label, Wilder J. A folder with nearly 700 pages of reports, crime scene photos, witness statements, Evelyn's hand-drawn maps, and a sealed envelope marked, "Do not open unless new evidence emerges." And so, an unanswered question was folded into silence. Jacob Wilder, the boy who carried a map in his heart, was no longer on anyone's map, until 2021, when he walked into a meeting room with a resume bearing another name, a faint smile on his lips, and gray eyes that had seen things no 8-year-old should witness. By the end of summer 1998, as the maple tree in the front yard began shedding leaves, Ashton Glen accepted that Jacob Wilder wouldn't return, at least not as they knew him. Evelyn never did. She stayed in the house at 213 Mapleridge Street, where Jacob walked out the door that morning and never came back. His room, with world maps covering 3 walls, neatly stacked National Geographic kids' books, and a solar system model hanging from the ceiling, remained untouched, as if time stopped on July 15, 1998. At 8:47 a.m. every day, Evelyn dusted each book page, each keepsake stone, each spaceship model Jacob had labeled with planet names. The silence in the house grew heavier. Thomas couldn't bear it. He started drinking more, talking less. At first, it was beer, then cheap whiskey. Evelyn held on to hope. He didn't. In 2003, on the 5th anniversary of the disappearance, Thomas moved out. He left a simple note on the fridge, "I can't live in the past anymore." He lost his job months later. Soon after, his license for 2 consecutive DUIs. People occasionally saw him sleeping in his pickup parked on the side of the road in West Haven. A local priest said Thomas came to church on Sundays, sitting in the back row, not praying, not singing, just staring at the ceiling, as if waiting for a voice from above. But the ceiling stayed silent. Evelyn kept waiting. Every July 15th, she lit 8 candles and placed them by Jacob's bedroom window, one for each year of his life when he vanished. The next year, 9, then 10, then 11. By 2021, she lit 31 candles. Neighbors said they couldn't look at the glow. "It's like the boy's soul is still drifting among those flames," one said. Reports about Jacob surfaced occasionally, flickers of light snuffed out by reality. In 2006, a witness claimed to have seen a teenager resembling Jacob at a motel in Topeka, Kansas. He had a small scar near his left ear and a backpack with a Star Wars sticker. Local police investigated, took statements, sent photos to Vermont. Evelyn nearly stopped breathing when she saw the images. But it was Liam Brooks, 16, a high school student with mild autism. The scar was from ear surgery. In 2010, a Canadian woman said she met Jacob at a summer camp in Ontario. She remembered the name because he said he loved making map houses. Though vague, it prompted cross-border coordination. No matches were found. A year later, rumors spread that Jacob was living under an alias in Phoenix, Arizona, working as a delivery driver for an organic food company. A blog post mentioning a childhood near a lake in Vermont sparked online sleuths to speculate about his identity. The internet demanded the case be reopened. But the blogger was Eric Dawson, 27, raised in Burlington, Vermont. The lake in his memory was Lake Champlain, not Ashton Glen. Each time, Evelyn relived hope, then despair. Like waves crashing against the same worn rock, she recorded everything in a leather notebook, labeled possible leads. From 1999 to 2021, there were 63 reports, numbered with dates, sources, and verification results. Each entry ended not with found or not found. Just one word, Evelyn wrote consistently. Yet, in 2012, she started using the internet more, initially for news, then joining support groups for parents of missing children. A Facebook group, Bring Jacob Home, was created, quickly gaining over 30,000 members. Weekly posts shared photos, theories, and sometimes maps analyzing potential abductor routes. Some believed Jacob was taken to Mexico. Others said he was sold to a cult in Utah. Opportunists posing as psychics offered to connect Evelyn with the boy's spirit for a fee. Still, Evelyn stayed in the group. No comments, no debates, just reading. And sometimes, posting a single line, "If you're out there, I never stopped waiting." Time's wall didn't erase memory. It only layered it with thick dust, and in that dust, some things still smoldered. Like the candles each year. Like the world map on Jacob's bedroom wall, and like the gray, evasive eyes with a small scar near the left ear, appearing 23 years later in a job interview over 1,000 kilometers from Ashton Glen. Lucas Grant wasn't easily shaken. As CEO of a software company worth over $100 million, he was accustomed to high-stakes decisions, last-minute meetings, and strategies shifting quarterly. But that day, in his minimalist office, white LED lights, soundproof glass walls, a small cactus on his desk, something beyond logic made his heart skip half a beat. The young man named Noah Rivers walked in, smiled politely, extended his hand, and said softly, "Hi, pleasure to meet you." Lucas shook it reflexively. But that handshake, cold, and the eyes. Something was wrong with those eyes. Lucas didn't recall what he said in the first 10 minutes of the interview. He only knew that in a moment when Noah tilted his head left to glance at a screen, the neatly trimmed light brown hair revealed a faint crescent scar near his left ear. Tiny, almost invisible, unless looked at closely. But Lucas saw it, and he knew it couldn't be mistaken. Not with Jacob Wilder. Because Lucas had lived 2 blocks from Jacob's house on Lambert Hill in Ashton Glen. They weren't close. Lucas was 8 years older. When Jacob vanished, Lucas was 16, in 11th grade, preparing for the SAT and playing on the high school basketball team. But he remembered Jacob more clearly than his classmates. The boy with curly blonde hair, always wearing a navy backpack, red Converse, and carrying a crumpled world map with Star Wars stickers scattered on it. Lucas had seen Jacob sitting alone under a maple tree in Crescent Park, unfolding his map and marking countries with a pen, as if planning to conquer the world. Once Lucas teased, "Where you headed, little explorer?" Jacob looked up, his smile missing a front tooth. "I want to go to Madagascar. I heard they have dancing lemurs." That was a month before he disappeared. On July 15, 1998, Lucas was playing basketball in his backyard when police sirens blared. His mother, Karen Grant, a city librarian, rushed home, face pale. "Jacob's missing," she said. Evelyn Wilder, Jacob's mother, was Karen's close colleague who gifted her blueberry muffins every birthday. The town was jolted from its summer slumber. Lucas joined the volunteer search team. He still kept the neon orange card labeled Search Crew #49 worn around his neck. For the first 4 days, he walked routes within a 3-mile radius of Ashton Glen Elementary, knocking on doors, asking everyone, "Have you seen this boy?" showing a blurry black and white photo of a grinning kid with a small scar near his left ear. That scar came from Jacob falling down the stairs at age 5. Evelyn had told the story. So much blood, but he didn't cry. He just asked if the scar would make him look like a superhero. After 7 days with no results, Lucas joined the night search team. Once, he waded through a swamp near the old train tracks with 2 officers, carrying flashlights and a megaphone. He never forgot the call echoing, "Jacob, where are you? We'll bring you home." No one answered. The case went cold, but Lucas didn't forget. At the supermarket with his mom, he'd see Jacob's poster on the produce section bulletin board, a portrait with bold text, "Missing, since July 15, 1998. If you see him, call 1-800. Once, Lucas tore off a flyer and kept it in his wallet through 3 years of college. So when Noah Rivers walked into the interview, Lucas didn't just see a candidate. He saw a grown version of a memory etched into his youth. Those gray eyes, the way they avoided direct contact. The strained smile, almost apologizing for existing. And that scar. It was Jacob. It had to be Jacob. Lucas couldn't ask directly. He finished the interview professionally, smiled, thanked Noah, and promised to follow up. But as the door closed, Lucas sank into his chair, hands trembling, with one question looping in his mind. If he really is Jacob, where has he been for 23 years, and who kept him? A CEO could solve millions of lines of code. But that day, Lucas faced a larger code, memory. And that code had returned, with eyes that spoke and a false name. Lucas didn't sleep that night. After Noah left the building, he returned to his office, locked the door, turned off the lights, and sat in darkness, with only the laptop screen's faint glow reflecting off his glasses. Memories of 1990s. Ashton Glen flooded back, blending with the faint smile and evasive gray eyes of the man who left the room hours earlier. Lucas opened Zoom. Luckily, as an internal interview, the meeting was recorded by default. He dragged the timeline to the 9th minute, when Noah tilted his head, revealing the crescent scar near his left ear. He hit pause. Then pressed Shift plus Command plus 4 on his MacBook. Click, screenshot saved. He repeated it 6 more times. Each time Noah tilted his head, adjusted his collar, or scratched his temple. With 7 stills collected, Lucas accessed a secure internal network he used 2 years ago as a consultant for an AI data project with the government. He had an old friend, Ryan Dempsey, now a systems engineer at the FBI's Data Analysis Center in Quantico. Lucas knew Ryan wouldn't agree easily, but also knew he'd helped investigate an identity fraud case in 2018. Lucas typed, "Ryan, need a favor. Not illegal. Very serious. Can you run facial recognition?" Attached were 3 shots of Noah Rivers, left profile, front and right profile. No further explanation. Ryan replied, after 23 minutes, "Send doobie and suspected real name. Need it for match probability." Lucas didn't hesitate to type the name that had lived in him for 23 years. Jacob Wilder, born March 12, 1990. Ashton Glen, Vermont, missing 1998. Then Lucas shut down his laptop. He leaned back, closed his eyes. But instead of sleep, his mind analyzed everything Noah said in the interview. Lucas remembered every detail, not just what was said, but how. A small example, when Lucas asked about data analysis tools Noah used at his last job, He replied, "I worked with a small team, mostly back-end folks. We called that stuff tonic work, dry but necessary tech." Tonic. Lucas opened his eyes. Only parts of eastern Vermont and New Hampshire used tonic for soda or carbonated drinks. Elsewhere, it's soda or pop. But Ashton Glen, Jacob's hometown, was exactly in that linguistic region. Lucas reopened his laptop. Access Sky Edge Systems' internal email system. As CEO, he could view any employee's emails, a feature for security compliance, not this. But Lucas knew he couldn't ignore the coincidence. He entered Noah's work email, n.rivers@skyedgesys.com. Searched keywords, home, Vermont, Ashton Pizza, tonic, school. First result, email sent February 18, 2021. Subject, lunch suggestions for remote teams. Content. When I was a kid, we used to have this small pizza place down the block called Tony's Slice. Best pepperoni in the world. It shut down in '99, I think, but damn, nothing ever tasted the same again. Lucas stood up. Tony's Slice was a small pizza shop on Cedar Street, Ashton Glen. It did close in 1999 after a fire. Not a major incident, no deaths, but the shop never reopened. That wasn't a detail easily found on Google. He kept searching. Another email, sent to a colleague on March 11, 2021. Funny thing, you call it soda, but we always said tonic growing up. Guess I never got rid of the old ways. Old ways. Lucas tapped the desk. His chest tightened, not from fear, but confirmation. Though the man called himself Noah Rivers, language didn't lie. Then Ryan messaged back. A simple 6-word text, match 92.6%. Want to know more? Lucas called him on video instantly. On screen, Ryan appeared with glasses, reflecting blue light from a large monitor behind him. He was somber. Noah Rivers' data first appears in the system in 2006, Phoenix, Arizona. Listed as a transfer student from New Mexico. No birth certificate. Social Security number issued in 2007. Late for someone claiming to be born in 1990. Could be a fake ID. Anything before 2006. Nothing. Completely blank. Lucas clasped his hands tightly. Could he actually be Jacob? Ryan exhaled. With that facial match probability, plus the shady record, you should consider escalating this. But only with DNA evidence. Lucas nodded. He knew that, but he also knew that if he acted rashly, if he confronted Noah directly, he might vanish. Again, so Lucas took another step. He emailed Beth Harmon, SkyEdge's HR director. Beth, I want us to roll out a summer health check policy for the whole company, basic blood and DNA tests as part of voluntary medical records. Make it a wellness program. Ensure Noah Rivers is on the first list. The game had changed. From a routine interview, Lucas had stepped into a covert investigation where every clue, every word, every scar could be the key to unlocking a truth buried for nearly 2.5 decades. And Lucas knew one thing for certain: if he stopped, the truth would be buried again. But if he continued, then maybe, just maybe, a boy who vanished in the summer of 1998 would be called by his true name for the first time in 23 years. Lucas Grant always believed in evidence. Every hunch, every instinct could be wrong, but DNA couldn't. After the clues from language, memories, and a questionable record, what Lucas needed now was undeniable, a biological confirmation. Obtaining a DNA sample from Noah wasn't easy, but as if by a stroke of prepared luck, after Noah left the interview room the previous day, Lucas had instinctively collected a few items from the table. Among them was a glass with a lip mark and a single light brown curly hair caught on the chair's armrest. At the time, Lucas wasn't sure what he'd do with that hair, but now it was golden evidence. He carefully used plastic gloves, sealed the hair in a foil bag, and placed it in a small cold storage container, delivering it to a private lab in Stamford, linked to civilian investigation services. Everything was done after hours, discreetly, leaving no internal records. Simultaneously, Lucas called someone he hadn't contacted in years. Evelyn Wilder. Evelyn, now 68, lived in a small nursing home in Burlington, Vermont. Time had etched itself into her frail frame, snow-white hair, and permanently sorrowful eyes. But her voice, when Lucas introduced himself, retained an eerie calm. "I remember you, Lucas. Karen's son, right?" "Yes, ma'am." Lucas paused. Finally he said, "I need something very important." I believe I may have news about Jacob. The line went silent, as if it had died. After a moment, Evelyn asked softly, "Do you need blood or saliva?" The hair sample from Noah Rivers and Evelyn Wilder's saliva sample were sent simultaneously, processed through the CODIS system, and analyzed at a lab using 24 STR markers, the FBI's standardized method for kinship analysis. The results came back after 46 hours and 13 minutes. Lucas received an email from the lab. Probability of maternal match 99.9999987%. Confirmed biological relationship, mother-son. He sat motionless in his chair, his heart pounded like thunder in his chest. No more doubts, no more ifs, no more maybes. Noah Rivers was Jacob Wilder. Lucas didn't stop there. If Jacob had truly vanished 23 years ago, and if he now lived under a new name with a fabricated record, who had enabled that, and why? Using his CEO authority and information from SkyEdge Systems' accounting department, Lucas requested a review of Noah's payroll records, something he could access without raising suspicion, as it fell under internal security audits. The results revealed something striking over Noah's 3 years at SkyEdge. His salary was consistently deposited through First View Bank in San Diego. But the oddity was this: every month on the 12th, an additional $2,500 was transferred into the same account from an entity called Maple Coast Foundation. Lucas quickly researched the organization. No website, no activity reports. All signs pointed to a lawyer's address in Wilmington, Delaware, a known haven for shell companies. The legal representative, JM Holdings Group, a bland, unremarkable name. Lucas asked Ryan, his old FBI friend, to run the data through internal financial systems. Ryan called back after 2 hours. Maple Coast is a dormant company, opened in 1999. It transfers money to one account, Noah Rivers. Consistent payments from 2005 to 2018. Then it switched to Bitcoin wallets. Who's behind it? This minded can't trace directly, but it's linked to 3 other Delaware-registered companies, all filed by the same person. Sound familiar? Who? Jonathan Marsh. Lucas's throat tightened. Jonathan Marsh was a lawyer specializing in international adoptions in the 90s. A mysterious boating accident in 2001 left him drowned, and his name faded from memory. Until now, resurfacing like a ghost from the past. Lucas realized Jacob Wilder's disappearance wasn't just the work of a single abductor. It was a network organized, funded, legally backed, and planned for the long term. That network had raised, monitored, and controlled Jacob's life for over 2 decades. A child doesn't vanish into thin air. They're hidden. They're remade. They're reprogrammed, like a sophisticated product. Lucas sat before his computer, hands trembling slightly. The truth was clear, but behind it lay a darkness he hadn't yet touched. And the bigger question, above all, did Jacob know who he was, or had he been forced to forget himself for 23 years? On July 6, 2021, at 5:42 a.m., FBI agents raided a 2-story wooden house deep in the coastal forests of Camden, Maine. The house looked unremarkable: moss-covered shingles, pale purple lavender trellises by the porch, and faint chimney smoke. But behind its serene facade was the hiding place of a stolen piece of Jacob Wilder's memory, or rather, the starting point of a fabricated life as Noah Rivers. The person arrested was Carolyn Drexler, 67, a former volunteer nurse who lived in Ashton Glen during that fateful summer of 1998. According to local medical records, Carolyn arrived in Ashton Glen in late May to care for her Parkinson's-afflicted mother, living at the end of Maple Ridge Street, just 600 meters from the Wilder home. She left town in mid-August, a month after Jacob's disappearance. What raised FBI suspicions wasn't just the timing and proximity, but Carolyn's name appearing frequently in financial transactions tied to Maple Coast Foundation, the entity discovered to have sent regular payments to Noah Rivers for years. Carolyn wasn't just the lonely old lady with a few cats, as neighbors described. She had a nursing degree, worked in Boston through the 80s, and retired early in 1999, right after Jacob vanished. A 4-hour search uncovered an old safe behind the fireplace, containing a cache of sophisticated forged documents, birth certificates, vaccination records, school transcripts, all under the name Noah Rivers, born 1993, hometown San Luis Obispo, California. Most striking, was a 300-page handwritten journal in blue ink, spanning August 1998 to 2010. The first page read, "Noah slept soundly in his new room for the first time. He hasn't spoken yet, but his eyes aren't as panicked as yesterday. I think I did the right thing." The journal didn't explicitly mention abduction, but detailed the transformation of Jacob into Noah, changing his accent habits, even memories. Each week, Carolyn noted the child's mood, reactions, and emotional stabilization process. A 1999 entry read, "Noah panics when he sees maps. I've hidden all map books in the house, started teaching him his hometown is Santa Cruz." At a federal interrogation room in Portland, when asked about her role in Jacob Welder's disappearance, Carolyn didn't cry or panic. She sat upright, silver hair neatly tied, eyes cold and voice steady. "I didn't kidnap him. I saved him." "Saved him from what?" the agent asked. "From being forgotten. You didn't live in Ashton Glen in 1998. You didn't see how those kids lived. His parents were always grieving their daughter who died before him. Jacob wasn't their world's center. I saw him alone, wandering after school, reading by the roadside, unnoticed. But you took him. You forged records, deceived society for 23 years. Carolyn paused. Then, in a near whisper, she said, "Maybe, but he ate well, studied well, lived in peace. I didn't hit him, didn't lock him up. I just wanted him to live with a name free of loss." "What about his real mother, Evelyn Wilder? Did you know you destroyed a mother's life?" Elaine Leawell. For the first time, Carolyn blinked, faintly. Then she turned to the interrogation room's window. Outside, it began to rain. Lucas Grant received the FBI report that late afternoon. Alone in his office, he scrolled through photocopies of Carolyn's journal. Some pages were redacted, some blurred by water. But they all pointed to one undeniable truth. Jacob had been reprogrammed, bit by bit, like an old operating system overwritten with a new name, new memories. And Carolyn, the self-proclaimed savior, hadn't acted alone. The journal mentioned status update, calls to a Mr. Vaughn in California, Dr. Martin in Oregon, and Miss Sullivan in Nevada, names that would surface in the ongoing investigation. Lucas sensed something more sinister than a typical abduction. This wasn't an impulsive act, not a moment of lost control. It was an organized plan, with assigned roles, programming a child's life like a covert project. And the most painful part, Jacob didn't know. He grew up believing he was Noah, believing his old memories were vague dreams, believing that if there was ever someone named Evelyn, she had likely forgotten him. But Evelyn never forgot. And now, the truth was finding its way back. "I don't remember exactly how I left Ashton Glen," Noah said, sitting upright, voice steady, eyes fixed on the void ahead, during his first official interview with federal agents. "But I remember the smell of the Jeep's leather seats, like burnt plastic, and the red scarf she wrapped around my face. I couldn't see, but I remember crying, asking over and over, 'Where am I going? I want to go home.'" The interview took place in a sealed room, recorded, with a lawyer and psychologist present. But Noah, the name the world knew him by, began recalling without coercion. By the third week after being taken, she told me a new name, Noah. Whenever I called myself Jacob, she got angry. I was locked in a dark basement room, cold and damp. She called it the thinking corner. Once I was starved for 3 days straight. By then I started repeating the new name, first to survive, then to eat. Noah spoke without tears. All emotions had been compressed like 23 years of sediment, but the psychologist beside him scribbled constantly. Signs of complex PTSD, indications of assimilation after prolonged psychological abuse. "Carolyn didn't hit me," Noah continued. "At least not after the first month. She shifted from violence to persuasion. She told stories about my old family, that my real mother was irresponsible, my father quick to anger. She said they let me get lost, and didn't bother looking. I didn't believe her at first, but over time, she repeated it. Day after day, she was patient. And then I started dreaming I was abandoned. No one called my old name anymore, only Noah, always Noah." Carolyn enrolled Jacob, now called Noah, in a Maine elementary school by fall 1998. She used a fake address, fake identity, fake vaccination records, and even posed as his mother at every parent-teacher meeting. She controlled everything, Noah recalled. "I wasn't allowed to invite friends over, never had birthdays outside the family, no camping trips, no personal email until 8th grade, and even then, she checked every message. Whenever someone asked about my past, she had a look that froze me. I learned to dodge questions, reciting memories from California. She made me memorize. Noah said that by age 11, he had almost completely forgotten Jacob. Only strange dreams remained of a house with sky blue walls, a backpack with a Star Wars sticker, and a woman reading by a window. But Carolyn quelled any doubts with gentle yet chilling words. That's just imagination. Kids often dream of things that aren't real. I believed her, Noah admitted. Because believing was easier than doubting. Doubting hurt, but believing let me keep living. From middle school onward, Noah attended small private schools. He excelled, stayed quiet, never caused trouble. Teachers called him mature beyond his years, but inside was an inexplicable void. I never felt like I truly belonged anywhere. I wasn't like other kids. I kept my distance. I never dared ask where did I come from. I was afraid of what I'd find. Carolyn didn't just raise him, she monitored him for life. From age 16, mysterious monthly deposits appeared in his savings account. Whenever Noah considered moving away or applying to colleges outside Maine, Carolyn always persuaded him to reconsider, reminding him of her favors, the money and her promise to protect you from the world out there. Until one day, at 20, Carolyn said, "You're a special child. I saved you from a terrible place. Don't ever look back. It has nothing for you but pain." Noah nodded, but a small crack had formed in his mind. That crack grew over the years as Noah studied computer programming in college, got his own email, and accessed unfiltered internet for the first time in 2012. He once searched Jacob Wilder on Google in 2015, but didn't dare click the links. Each time he neared his past, an invisible force pulled him back, bound by guilt and fear. I lived in a sophisticated cocoon, Noah admitted. An artificial identity tailored to every detail. I no longer knew who I was or where to start returning from. But the world changed. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic loosened Carolyn's grip. Noah began working remotely, living alone in a Hartford apartment, and slowly, the cocoon began to crack. For the first time, I was truly alone, Noah said. No one checked my phone. No one monitored my emails. No one told me who I had to be. And then I started journaling. For the first time, I dared write 2 words, Jacob Wilder. And just a year later, he walked into SkyEdge Systems' office, where a man named Lucas Grant recognized what the world had long forgotten. Behind the face called Noah was a boy named Jacob, waiting to be called home. 3 days after Noah Rivers' true identity was confirmed via DNA, Lucas Grant drove himself to Rose Hill Haven, nursing home in Burlington's southern suburbs. He didn't announce his visit, didn't bring media, lawyers, or cameras. Just a quiet trip to return a son to a mother who had waited in silence for nearly a quarter century. Evelyn Wilder, now 69, lived in a small third-floor room overlooking a summer sunflower field. Diagnosed with mild dementia 3 years earlier, she still had lucid days. That day, thankfully, was one of them. Noah stood at the threshold. Sunlight from the window made his eyes crystal clear, like those of a child once reading maps in a living room. Evelyn looked up, nodding politely, as she did with strangers. "Hello, Mrs. Evelyn," he said, voice trembling slightly. "I'm Noah, but you once called me another name." Evelyn blinked, her eyes welling up. Noah took a deep breath. "You used to call me Jacob the Explorer, because I loved maps and always hid paper treasure maps under my pillow." Evelyn froze, as if shocked by lightning. Her hands shook, and then, without another word, she burst into tears. The sobs of 300 months of waiting, countless candles lit each year, and a lingering nightmare that now had an ending, not perfect, but real, they embraced. No words, none needed. The shoulders of the grown man, a different person now, were still enough for the aging mother to recognize the memory that was never erased. Evelyn couldn't recall yesterday, but she remembered her son once called her, "Mom, you're my map." The news spread within hours. Major outlets like CNN, NBC, and AP News ran headlines, "Hartford man revealed as boy missing since 1998. Titles competed to frame the story as iconic, 23 years under another identity. The boy from old news returns. Ashton Glen, the town where Jacob was born and vanished, came alive, as if time had reversed. Evening News replayed old clips of the search. A local journalist unearthed the photo of the volunteer group, with 16-year-old Lucas Grant holding a map beside Jacob's mother. Everything seemed to complete a circle of fate. On July 5, 2021, Ashton Glen authorities held a welcome home Jacob ceremony. Not a funeral, not a press conference. A community memorial, where residents, even those who only knew the boy from old posters, lit a candle and placed a sunflower on the stone bench where Jacob once played. Noah stepped onto a small stage outside Town Hall. His eyes scanned faces now lined with wrinkles, many who no longer knew him but wept seeing him alive. He took the mic, voice soft but steady. "I don't know if I deserve this love, but I know one thing. I can't erase the past 23 years, nor deny the first 8 that shaped me. My name is Noah Jacob Rivers, and I'd like to keep both names as 2 parts of the same person." In the audience, Evelyn nodded, clutching an old map Jacob drew at 7. A route to the ice cream shop that led to the library instead. Jacob's return opened other investigative doors. The FBI task force traced shell companies tied to Maple Coast Foundation. Carolyn Drexler, the fake foster mother, was court-ordered for psychiatric evaluation. But evidence suggested she was a small link in a larger network. The case remained ongoing. For Noah, or Jacob, the focus wasn't the abductor's sentence, but rebuilding a real life. He stayed in Hartford, continuing his programming job part-time. He began journaling, writing under his old name for the first time. Lucas Grant, who recognized an old face among millions, remained a silent guardian. They weren't close, but shared a unique bond, like 2 witnesses to the same secret from opposite sides of time. Noah said in a small CNN local interview, "There's no such thing as full recovery. I can't go back to being an 8-year-old. I can't relive the lost years. But I can live on, and this time, with my real name." At the interview's end, the host asked, "If you could send a message to yourself in 1998, what would you say?" Noah thought for a moment, then gave a sad smile. "Jacob, if anyone says no one's looking for you, don't believe them. Mom's still waiting. And there's a man named Lucas, who only met you a few times, but will never forget your eyes. The world still remembers you." The reunion wasn't perfect. Evelyn had days of fog, days of clarity. Sometimes, she looked at Noah and asked, "Are you the physical therapist?" But each time he said, "Mom, you called me Jacob the Explorer," her eyes sparkled like the evening light through her son's old room. They'd never have the old days back, but they had a calm July afternoon, 2 cups of hot tea, and the breeze from a sunflower field. For Evelyn, that was enough. For Jacob, it was the first time he felt no longer lost. Carolyn Drexler was sentenced to 175 years in federal prison on November 2, 2021, by the Southern District of Maine Court. The 11-day trial included testimony from over 28 witnesses, including Noah Rivers, or rather, Jacob Wilder, the only surviving victim able to fully recount what happened. The court rejected all mitigating claims of misguided love or unlawful fostering. The verdict was blunt. You were not a mother, you were a criminal. Yet the sentence didn't fully restore the truth. From documents seized at Carolyn's home, encrypted letters, lists of children circled in red, and cassette tapes labeled Destiny Reassignment Plan, the FBI uncovered that Carolyn hadn't acted alone. A 9-month investigation confirmed the existence of an underground organization called the Child Renewal Society. Posing as a charity network to give neglected children a chance at a better life, CRS orchestrated abductions, forged identities, and psychologically trained children they deemed wasted by poor or useless environments. A handwritten 2000 memo by an anonymous member bore their slogan, "We don't steal children, we rescue futures." It chilled even seasoned agents. 3 other victims were found during the FBI's Reclaiming Light operation from January to June 2022. All were adults living under new identities with foster parents in different states. 2 others mentioned in Carolyn's journal as ML and TR remained unfound. They may no longer be alive, or they may have been conditioned to not want to return. Noah Rivers, or Jacob Wilder, began intensive psychological therapy in late July 2021. Weekly, he met a specialist in post-traumatic identity disorders and survivor syndromes from long-term abductions. In many sessions, Noah sat silent for hours, sketching the layout of Carolyn's old house where he was held. Details of a hidden cabinet, a bugged room, and a window sealed with iron nails emerged like a buried memory map. "I don't remember everything," he said, in his 11th session. "But my body does. My hands still shake when I smell Dial soap, the kind she used to scrub the floors every night." In February 2022, Noah signed a contract to publish his memoir, What She Called Me. Released by Greylight Press, it featured a foreword by Lucas Grant. "This isn't just a story of a missing child. It's a reminder that identity can't be stolen if we're brave enough to reclaim it." The book became an instant bestseller in psychological memoirs, not for sensationalism, but for its restrained, haunting narrative of a painful journey. At a book signing in Montpelier, a middle-aged woman asked, "What's it like to live truly after 23 years?" Noah paused for a long time. He didn't smile, didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "It feels like waking up in the dream I once thought was real." Evelyn Wilder, his mother, couldn't attend the signing due to her declining health. In her final lucid moments, she'd hold her son's hand and ask in a hoarse voice, "Jacob, did I ever let you get lost?" Each time, Noah replied the same. "No, Mom, you didn't lose me. I just took too long a detour to come back." Lucas Grant, the man who started it all with a simple interview, never accepted major interview requests. When asked why, he only smiled. "I recognized that face not for fame, but to return a life." Noah now lives quietly in a small lakeside apartment in Hartford. He works as a technical consultant for a nonprofit aiding long-term missing persons, especially those unfound for over 5 years. But the past doesn't vanish. Sleepless nights, dreams of Carolyn entering the room, whispering, "Your name is Noah, not Jacob." Moments of confusion over which memories are real and which were implanted. And yet, like a quiet but resonant ending, the final line of his memoir reads, "I don't know who I am, but at least I'm no longer a lie." The story of Noah Rivers, or rather Jacob Wilder, isn't just a thrilling 23-year criminal case. It's a mirror, reflecting the silent pains modern America still lacks tools to heal. In a society connected by technology, yet riddled with blank spaces, this story poses a question: have we truly listened to those forgotten? For 2 decades, Jacob lived in plain sight, studying, working, paying taxes, unrecognized as the boy who vanished. It took Lucas Grant, a CEO noticing old eyes and a scar in a routine interview, to unravel a 23-year secret. This shows that justice sometimes comes not from systems, but from individual awakening. The story also highlights the weaknesses of post-1990 CES mechanisms, with no Amber Alert or unified federal system, leading to countless errors and wasted critical hours in the first 72. But above all, Jacob's tragedy forces us to consider the power of words. A repeated lie, "Your parents abandoned you," was enough to make a child believe they were unlovable. In today's America, where battles over rights blur truth and lies, this story reminds us human identity cannot be reprogrammed. Every child, every citizen deserves to be heard and remembered, no matter how long they've been silent. If Jacob Wilder's story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to catch more forgotten truths. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next video, where memories that never sleep will continue to be told.